to this episode of Cali and Craig Talk. I'm Cali.
And I'm Craig.
And today we have a super special guest. A.G. Rodriguez, one of our Deep Hearts YA authors, is here with us.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Callie. Thanks, Craig. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your debut novel, Stone Feather Fang.
Stone Feather Fang is the story of two people who are ancestors, or who are distantly related to each other, and it follows their separate narratives. And throughout the story, you kind of get to see how they come together. So I use Taino mythology as kind of the basis foundation for the story. I also use a lot of Puerto Rican history and names and dates, places, and stuff like that.
Super exciting.
And made sure that all of my characters were I was very inclusive, because I mean, why wouldn't you be?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's a YA fantasy that's kind of near to my heart, because it's definitely comes from my culture and just my own personal histories and stories and stuff like that. So
that's super exciting. Can you remember where you were when you came up with the idea for this story?
yeah, actually. So I was at work, and I was on my lunch break, and at that time I was reading the Silmarillion for the first time. So J.R.R. Tolkien, and I had already had like the foundations of this story kind of floating around in my head. And as I was reading the Silmarillion, I was like, you know what? Most fantasies are Eurocentric. Like, they focus on, Greek or Norse or Celtic or Germanic stories and mythologies and gods and legends and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, what if I did a like Silmarillion style story fantasy, but I used, more Latin American, Latino culture to do it? Like, how would that look like? And so I'm in the middle of reading the book, and I was like, oh, that's something.
Yeah.
Like, I put the book down. I always carried a notebook with me. I still carry a notebook with me at all times. And so I pulled out my notebook, and I just kind of wrote the idea down. And I had already, like I said, I already had kind of found like a little foundational stuff for the story from other stories that I had written. I had there's a chapter in Stone Feather Fang called Hinata and the Crimson Sails, which is one of the stories of Hinata, one of my heroes in the story. And I had actually had that story published as a short story a couple of years before. And I was like, oh, I could use that. I just need to tweak it and make it more Puerto Rican and more Taino, and I could definitely do that. And so that ended up being the base for the story. And then just from the whole idea of, I need to make a whole fantasy based on Taino and Puerto Rican culture and mythology, and use this as like kind of like the basis. So
I love that. That's so cool. How long did it take you to write it?
Oh man. So that was back in, I want to say it was in 2019, maybe 2018. I think it was 2019. That was back in 2019. And so I had already had like bits and pieces of other fantasy stories that I wrote that I borrowed from. So I started like scribbling in around 2019. And then we got 2020 and COVID. And I was off of work for 3 months. So at the beginning of the quarantine, I had 30,000 words. And that was just from everything I'd written before, like the couple years prior. And then from quarantine to, I want to say it was March, April, May. I think it was like middle of June or July, I wrote 60,000 words. So from March to July,
Hmm.
it went from 30 to 90,000 words. And then I was like, this is a book.
Yeah, I got a book now. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden I have a book.
Oh, that's so exciting. It's so fun when it comes together, though. I love when like the idea like just comes to you like that. And it's
Yeah, for
cool
sure.
that like you said you had all the little ideas and then they became the big idea. So that's super exciting. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, you got
Yeah,
something?
I
Yeah.
do have something. I'm always curious about the process from that first draft to publication because we've had some authors on the podcast who it's like, I wrote the book, it was perfect, I sent it off, and it was accepted. And then we've had people who are like, I wrote it, then I realized I'm thinking of Trey. When we had him, he
Yeah.
rewrote the novel entirely, like three or four
Yeah.
times before it got
Yeah.
to like the final version. And so Stone Feather Fang, was it like a one and done, or was it like multiple rewrites, changing
Hmm.
things, new characters, new
Hmm.
plots?
Yeah.
I wish I could say I was like that good that I wrote it once and I was like, oh man, this yep, done. No, it was definitely a process. It went so when I first wrote it, it was not YA.
Hmm.
And when I had a close friend of mine who I had her read it, and she came back and told me, this feels more YA to me.
Hmm.
Have you considered change like switching it up? And I was like, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
And then I had another friend say the exact same thing. And these friends don't know each other. They live completely different stuff.
Yeah.
And she said the same thing. And I was like, son of a, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to. So like
Yeah.
I had to, so I went through and I had to completely change it. Uh, I had to it was also completely third person. So I
Hmm.
had to when I changed it to YA, I also had to change it from third to first.
Hmm.
And then I had to like I had some like kind of graphic scenes that I had to
Yeah.
take out, and I had
Yeah.
like definitely superfluous violence that I had to take out. Like I had stuff like that I just had to get rid of.
Yeah.
And then so then I came with like then I had from there I had the revision to this now it's YA, and then I did a pitch event on Twitter, and that's how I ended up landing my agent.
Hmm.
And through that, whenever I signed with her, it went through a whole nother like another round.
A whole
I was
nother
like,
thing.
okay,
Yeah.
I need to change. So then it was another process of having to go back through from the beginning
Oh
and
my
just like
gosh.
yeah. And then we had been querying it for I want to say over a year, like a year and a half maybe, and we finally got like some feedback on it.
Hmm.
Uh, and then it went through another, and but this other one it wasn't like a full revision; it was just a partial revision for like the
Hmm.
beginning. I had to switch off, so it was just it was constantly having to change stuff
Yeah.
over and over again until we finally landed on something that was like,
We
okay,
got it. Yeah.
maybe we have it this time. So yeah,
Aw.
it was a process, man.
Well, it's great now. I mean, whatever it came from, it's great now, and you're getting lots of great reviews. So we love it. We're super
Thanks.
happy to have it. I'm super happy that it's a Deep Hearts title. We're really proud of that title. But what did you say? Did you say you found your agent through a Twitter event? Did you say that?
Yeah. So they do all those pitch events on Twitter all the time.
Oh, okay.
Like
Mhm.
yeah, I
I'm
can't
like 1,000 years old, so I don't know what you're talking about. So
remember.
sure, they do pitch events on Twitter.
Yeah. So I did one of the pitch events, and it was for Latino authors. It's
Okay.
for Latina authors, and so I
Mhm.
I did that event, and I got a couple of agent likes. I had I think 8 in total, and I was like, cool. So that's 8 agents who want me to submit to them. So I submitted to all of them, and I got no's from all of them. And then the last one came back several months later. Came back, and the agent told me, I really love this idea and I really want it, but I'm in the process of moving to another publishing house. I can't take any more clients right now. All
Mhm.
this. So she was like, I can't. I'm moving to another agency. I can't take any more clients right now, but I know
Hmm.
somebody who might be interested. Do you mind
Hmm.
if I forward it to them? And I
Hmm.
said, by all means.
Please do. Yeah, please. Yeah.
She forwarded it to Stephanie, and then that's how I ended up. Uh,
Ah, that's
and my agent.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of fortuitous circumstances.
Yeah, for sure. Well, everything works out the way it should. So that's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah, it's really good. That's really fun. I didn't know they had these things called pitch events.
Oh man, they have so many.
I
Sometimes
don't
it's
pay
like
attention to, I really am not on like you see me on Instagram, but I did not use social media until I signed my contract. Like, well, I signed like I got on social media when I wrote the book. And then once I started working with Craig, then I, like started using social media because of, this. But
I was the
yeah,
same way. I was like
yeah.
I didn't I five I want to say like 7 years ago, I was like, I'm done with social media. I'm not doing this anymore.
Mm,
And then I decided I got to because of my writing.
yeah,
I had a friend of mine who's also a writer, and she told me you got to. It's just like you
yeah,
have to. And if you do it now and start establishing it now, it'll be less work later once you actually get a deal. And I
yeah.
was like, ugh, I don't want to. So
Well, she was
I was like,
right. Yeah, she was right because sometimes people, different things work for different people. So we certainly
yeah,
do have authors that are fine without social media, but we do find that the ones that are interactive with their followers do tend to sell better than the ones that aren't. So
yeah,
yeah, and you've done a great job of it. I mean, we just, we talked to AG before we started recording, and I already told him I'm super impressed because you seem to do a lot on social media. I mean, leading up to your book release, you were doing like questions. Was it a question a day or something, or a fact a day? What was it?
yeah. I had
Yeah,
just a fact today about Stone Feather Fang.
yeah,
I had several people send me like a bunch of questions, and I came up with some myself. And it was
yeah.
uh, there was a one point where I just kind of gave up on it because I was like, this isn't having any effect. And then surprisingly, I got a DM on Instagram from
Hmm.
somebody who was like, hey, I really appreciate that you doing these. Like, I
Hmm.
really enjoy them. And then I
Hmm.
was like, well, I gotta start doing them again.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes is
Yeah,
one
just one
person to
person.
say.
Yeah,
It's just like one person. Like we're such a funny bunch as authors because we just need like that one person to tell us like this is worth it what you're doing
yeah.
and
The
like
little
that they're
sip,
enjoying
the
it.
little sip of
That little bit. Yeah.
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 Just oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah, I have one of my favorite things that happens. I mean, besides like when we get like good reviews, but I love when people DM me stuff that they liked about the book. Like my favorite thing now is when people are DMing me while they're reading it and they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Ah, and I'm like, "This is the greatest thing ever." Like it's the greatest joy as a writer to have someone like reading it along with you and
yeah,
telling you like, "I really love that you wrote this," or "I can't believe that you did this," or "Oh my gosh." Don't you love that so much? I think that's so fun.
yeah. I've had it's only happened twice or three times for me.
Hmm.
But it's that little bit of you know like it's like vindication that like oh
Yeah.
yes
Yeah.
I did something good.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely gives you confidence and you're like, I don't
Yes.
suck at this. I actually don't suck at this. Yeah, I have another book coming out, which we're not going to talk about me, but I have another book coming out real soon. And I just got my edits back from Craig, and they were like the best edits you could ever get back. Like the book was like basically done. And I was like, I don't suck. Like this is amazing. It's the greatest feeling ever, right? Because like we're taught too that when you get your edits back, like be ready for like this tumultuous, like horrible
Yeah,
process. Like you're gonna be
yeah.
crying and there's gonna be revision after revision. So like to get edits back, like and I was just like, everything is fine. I was like, what is happening? Like so, but it's a really different kind of satisfaction, when somebody else that's established and knows what they're doing looks at your work and says, "Hey, this is good." You're like, what? Because we
Yeah.
think it's good. You know what I mean? Like when you write, like you wrote your stuff and you're like, this is great. And then you get the revisions and you're like, God, does this suck? Like, and then you have the people
Yeah.
that come back and say it
Was
doesn't.
I wrong?
Yeah, but you're not wrong because I see tons of 5-star reviews for you, and we know that this is a good book. So you have to feel good at this point.
I mean, it comes and goes.
Yeah, I think that's
I feel
pretty
like
normal for all of
that's
us.
yeah, I was about to say, but that's like par for the course for writers, though.
It
Like
is.
you do something great, and then like it doesn't matter how many times people say this is great, this is great. You're like, but is it?
But is
But
it?
is it?
Yeah. Yeah. My husband is trying to really get used to that aspect, like with me, because I'm up and then I'm like the next second I'm like moving on to the next thing. And he's like, you just got a 5-star review. And this person just
Yeah,
said they loved all the stuff. Like, how are we here already? And I'm
yeah,
like, well, but they didn't say blah. So is it really a like that's just the way that I think we are as writers. We're just
yeah.
constantly going up and down with it. But yeah, I mean, the book is great. Craig, you want to ask a question?
Sure. So I guess to get in a bit more of a different direction, way back at the beginning of this discussion, you said that when you started writing, you didn't want to do another Eurocentric fantasy because we all know there's a lot of it. So I'm curious, just beyond wanting to do something not Eurocentric or something a little bit more tied to your culture, that or your background, I think there's this two-part question. Why is it important to write something that's non-Eurocentric? And then what do you think, or how do you, because you're also writing young adult, and we know that adults read young adult, but we are
Hmm.
always writing it with the idea that teens are going to read this. And so
Hmm.
why is, it's important for you, but why is it also important for your reader?
Um, so I think I'll do the first part of the question first. It For me has to do with, I guess, representation in the market. Around the same time I had the idea for the book, I'm getting into, I'm trying to get into the publishing culture and like really try to understand how where the market's going and stuff like that, and where my place is in that as an author, and especially as a Latina author, um, and seeing how it was some ridiculous number, like 90% of all the books signed in 2020 were by white male authors. Um, and I was like, that's absurd.
It is.
And I started following Puerto Rican authors and seeing the work that they were putting out, and like reading it and being like, oh my God, this is great. Like I see myself in this book. Like I see, my family in this book. And it made me want to be a part of that, to really highlight my culture, where I'm from, and show that, hey, there's stories being written by marginalized groups that are just as good as all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, to segue to the second part, I think it's important for young people to see that, especially if they are in a marginalized group, to see themselves in things
Yeah.
like that,
Hmm.
because it gives them like something to like shoot for and something to like work towards. Like,
Hmm.
oh my God, I could do that. Like I could be an author, I could be an actor, I could be a
Yeah.
musician, because look at this guy or this gal or this person, they're
Yeah.
exactly like me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I look back at my childhood and growing up, all of the people who influenced me the most were not Puerto Ricans.
Hmm.
I didn't have like Boricuas that I would like look at and be like, oh yeah, that's
Hmm.
uh, and except for like Roberto Clemente, because like that's like he's like a Boricua god. But anyway, there wasn't a lot, and it was because I didn't see a lot of them. Like there
Yeah.
was a lot of Puerto Rican actors. There wasn't a lot of Puerto Rican authors getting published. If
Hmm.
you weren't in like just completely, I guess, entrenched in a heavily an area that was really heavy in the diaspora of Puerto Rico. You didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
And growing up, I was moving all over the place, and so like I had that realization looking back that I didn't see that growing up, and I would have loved seeing that growing up, and knowing my my inner child, like looking back, thinking, oh, that would have been great to like be with, to see myself in this book that I read. I read a
Yeah,
lot,
for
like
sure.
I read a lot of fantasy and a lot of science fiction growing up, and like
Yeah.
in like the covers, and like they're all white people on the covers, and I'm like, that guy's got blonde hair. I can't be that guy. I can maybe
Yeah.
be the dwarf because he's like fat and's got dark hair, but
Oh
like
my gosh.
so that was that. I guess that was the big like underlying reason why I wanted to
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah.
I also at that time I was uh, I was kind of rediscovering my culture at that
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Um, I was uh, I was becoming a lot more interested in stuff that I didn't get growing up, like
Hmm.
things that either my parents didn't teach me, or that um, it just kind of fell by the wayside growing up, because that
Yeah.
happens with
Of
everybody.
course. Yeah.
Um,
But you came
I,
from a big family too,
I
right? We
did.
both had. I think we talked about this. We had like a million brothers and sisters. You
Yeah,
too, right?
I have four sisters, so
Yeah.
well, five sisters, but
Yeah.
yeah, I came from a big family, and um, it happens a lot in Latina cultures, where especially if you're the first generation that's not born where you're from, there's this
Hmm.
heavy, there's this really like heavy expectation for you to be the American.
Mm.
And I see it all the time with like friends who are Mexican, or friends who are Cuban, or just from anywhere else. Being that first generation born in the States, like there's this big thing. You gotta be the American. You have to be the success. Like this is why we moved here. We did this for
Yeah.
you, for our children, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um,
Yeah.
and so at that time, I was kind of rediscovering like who I was, not just, but who I was as a Puerto Rican, like somebody of Puerto Rican descent. My parents,
Hmm.
grandparents, as far back as we know,
Hmm.
everybody in my line was born and raised in Puerto Rico, except for like my generation, like me and my sisters and my
Hmm.
cousins, like all
Hmm.
first generations born in the States. Uh, and so I was like reclaiming that part of me
Yeah.
whenever I first started writing. So I was reading a lot of like Puerto Rican history books. I was getting like really in depth in my pride of being a
Hmm.
Boricua man, and
Hmm.
I bought Puerto Rican flags, I bought like T-shirts, and
Yeah.
I, I eventually ended up getting my tattoo, and like
Oh,
so
that's so
it's like
cool. Yeah, but that's so cool as an adult to be able to do it too. Like you had
yeah,
like a really great experience because you were old enough to understand it and you were old enough to learn all of these really exciting things and really like, understand them instead of being taught
right,
them as a child and just accepting them because you're a child and you accept what your parents teach you. You were able to really understand them as an adult. I think that's really cool.
yeah, and so I kind of hope that even if like one kid reads it and says, oh man, like I'm Puerto Rican and I can do this, or like, oh yeah, that that character kind of seems like me, or whatever, like
Yeah.
then that's worth it. Like it's
Yeah.
cool, like that they can be proud of
Hmm.
of uh who they are, of being Puerto Rican, of being a Boricua. Like they can be proud of that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess that I hope that answers your questions,
Oh,
Craig.
it did. It did. It
Yeah.
absolutely did. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
I
great. Those are two great answers. Really, like awesome. I love it. Yeah, I don't I'm not going to inspire any children with my work. So children that should not read what I write actually. So no. Um so I have another question about your story.
All right.
And it is, well, you can say you don't because I usually tell people they have to pick, but I can't pick. So I'm going to ask you to pick. And if you can, it's okay. Do you have a
Okay.
favorite character in your story?
Oh, 100% Augustine.
Oh,
100%.
yeah. What is your
Well, now
favorite thing
see,
about
but
Augustine?
now that I said that, now I'm like, maybe also Maboya.
Yeah. Do you
So
feel, go ahead.
no.
No, I was going to tell you, what is your favorite thing about that character?
So I'm kind of a goofball, and Augustine is kind of me. Like
Okay.
not entirely,
Oh,
but
yeah. We
there
all understand. We do it. We write ourselves into
yeah,
characters. Little bits of us are in
exactly.
them.
Little
Yeah.
bits of you make it into all the characters you write. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I put a little bit more of me in him
Mm-hmm.
than anybody else. And so he was just fun to write because I realized, and I kind of realized this after I wrote the book that uh, I'm I am a clown, and I need to embrace that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I don't want to, but like I need
Mm-hmm.
to embrace it, and like when I do, I enjoy it. And so Augustine was like that, embracing the being the irreverent, like
Yeah.
he's being the clown, being the one who always has a quip, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was just fun to write. There was actually um, uh, there was a moment during my drafting where I got into like a plot, like not a hole, but like I was like, oh my God, I don't know where to go from
What do I
here.
do? Yeah.
And the only thing I could think to do was I gotta kill Augustine. Like I gotta kill him. And I did it. And then like one of my alpha readers like read it and they were like, you need to not do this. And I was like, why? And they're like, he's you. And I was like, oh.
He is me. And then you like took a step back.
Yeah, and then I took a step back and I was like, oh, no, she's 100% right. I can't kill him off. He's my favorite character. He's me. But
That's so
uh
funny.
and then I really liked writing Maboya because it was fun. So the the Taino god's name is Maboyas. Um
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to change it because I have this there's this uh thing that happens with language where as the generations go on, like words change and the
Yeah.
spellings of words change. And so and in my head, that's why I did it. And like I never explained it in the book, but like yeah. Anyway, so I was writing Maboya and I was like every time I got to because he was the first Taino semi that I wrote. And so I got to really explore how like this Taino god, like what kind of because he's the god of death. He's not the god of the underworld. He's the god of death. So a how would a Latin American god of death like what would he be like? What would he do? What would he be?
Yeah.
And everything I read, like he's kind of it reminded me a lot of Native American mythology where death was kind of a trickster. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so then I was like, oh, that's gonna be fun. And so anytime I wrote Maboya, I always just had fun just playing around with him, like changing how he looked and changing how he talked, because that's just
Yeah.
what he does. And so I got to really just have fun with his characters. So both of those characters were a lot of fun to write, and I just really they were. I think they're my favorite.
Yeah.
I don't usually my like the villain usually is not my favorite guy to write.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, like a lot of writers, like they love write the villain is like
Yeah.
yes, that's what you
Yeah.
like, but like not me particularly.
Yeah.
But Maboya is an exception. Like I really liked writing him. He was a lot of fun to write. Him and Agustin. So
I think that's my cue to pick a question. Uh, so what I'm getting across from the between the words of your answers is you really enjoy writing. Like you love writing. I can tell you absolutely love writing. So can you tell me like I guess I like two-part question. What do you love most about
Yeah.
writing and like why is writing important to you?
uh, I I just so I love it so much that when I'm not doing it, I get into these depressive funks. um, where if I'm if it's been too long since I've like worked on a project, like every cloud is gray. It's raining all the time. I hate life. Like I can't find joy in anything. Being a creative, like I need to have that creative outlet. And when I write, I think my favorite part about it is I have is getting that outlet and getting, having that way to express myself creatively and then seeing it take shape. I think one of my favorite things that happens to me when I write is when my story starts doing things on its own.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have
Yes.
experienced. I don't know if either of you,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
you have a plan. Like this is where the story's going to go, and then you get in that zone, that flow where you're just writing, and then when you're done, you're like, I don't know what this guy was thinking. What was he?
Yes. Yes. I
'Cause,
love when that happens.
yeah, it is so fun, and it's one of my favorite things about writing is when that happens. Is when in my head the character's gonna do this and I'm writing and the character says, no, I'm not, I'm gonna do this, and then you look at it and you go, well, that guy knew what he wanted, so that's cool. Good for him.
Yes. Yeah. I
That's
had
my
to go ahead.
that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing about. What was the other part of your question, Craig? I'm sorry.
Oh, well, it's kind of related, but why is it important to you?
um it's yeah, it's just like I was saying earlier, I get like really depressed when I'm not writing, and like to create is just, it's one of those things that for me helps me feel a little bit more connected to, like, I guess my subconscious, and with things around me, not only with the world around me, but with like my memories and with the stories that I tell myself, and like it just helps me be like connect to them all. And I mean, there's a there's a lot of things that you can say like make us human, but I feel like storytelling is one of those things that like it's one of those like core things that like makes us who we are, is the ability to tell stories and to
Yeah.
and that's why it's just so important to me. Like I've always been a storyteller. I've always enjoyed doing it. uh a couple years ago, my mom, when they were moving, she found a story that I wrote when I was like 4 or 5 years old. It
Mm-hmm.
was like 3 pages long, and I used the word very like 1,000 times to
Oh,
describe how big something was. It was very
cute.
big. She gave it to me. I died laughing. She was like, "You should have known that this is where you were gonna like this is where you were headed, because you were like
Yeah.
5 years old and you were already writing stories."
Yeah.
And uh, it's yeah. So it feels. I don't know, I've always been that kind of that storyteller, and like it feels important to me.
Yeah.
It's not important to anybody else. Like even if I had uh never landed an agent or never found deep parts to
Mm-hmm.
publish the story, like I'd still be writing because I
Yeah.
because I like to tell stories,
Yeah.
like to write, and
Yeah.
it's such a cathartic exercise for me,
Yeah. I
and
agree.
it brings me joy to
Yep.
the where, like I said, if I'm not creating something, I'm miserable. I'm miserable to be around. Like
Aw. We
it's
need a
like,
word for that because we have the hangry word for like when you're so hungry, and you're angry. What's the
yeah.
word for like when you're not writing and you're angry?
you just
You're rangry or something. Yeah, because I can understand that. Yeah,
yeah.
I had a funny story with one of my characters. This book hasn't been published yet, but I was having trouble connecting with one of the characters that I was writing, and I was just like, don't know where this guy's story is gonna go. And then there was another person in the story, and I was like, I didn't have these two characters together at all. And then I was sitting in the car with my husband. We were taking our youngest does guitar lessons, so we were taking her to her guitar lesson. And all of a sudden, like in my head, it was the weirdest thing because like the one guy goes over and he just grabbed the other character and pulled him to him, and like literally it was like looked in my face, and I was like, what the hell just happened? And I told my husband, I was like, oh my God, I know what happens in the story. And he was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, this is gonna happen with this, and this guy's gonna do this, and this is, and he was like, how did that just happen? I was like, I don't know, but I just saw it happen. It was like the character just like totally moved in my mind. But like from then on, I didn't, it was like I knew the character, but the character definitely like took over the story at that point. Like
Yeah,
it was almost like in my mind, he was like, you can go, like I have it under control
yeah,
because
I
this
got
is what
this.
I want to do. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that was, and I hadn't like, it's weird because it's your mind, your mind is the one coming up with it, but I hadn't foreseen that happening. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't planning for that to happen, and it just came to me. And now I'm like, oh my God, that was perfect. And I'm like, can't believe that character did that. My husband's like, well, you came up with it. I'm like, well, kind of. Did I come up with
You
it?
don't
Like, I don't
understand.
know.
Yeah.
I was just here and it happened. So it's really weird. Like I feel like we have a lot of really weird experiences as writers like and that was definitely the weirdest one that I've had happen because the character just kind of moved on his own. But like, I don't know. That's the way that I write. I don't usually like plot stuff out. Do you write? Because I know in the beginning of the podcast you said you wrote down some ideas and stuff. And Craig and I are working on a book, a Christmas story. And so we're gonna write it a little different than we're used to writing ourselves. Because like for me, I don't plot, I don't write characters out, I don't write anything. I just write, and it just comes to me, and that's just the way that I write. But
Yeah.
I know other people do like the outline, they do the plot, they do this, they do the characters, which we're gonna, take more of that approach since we're co-authoring.
Mhm.
But for you, is that what type of approach do you take? Do you plot everything out, or you just write as it comes?
It's a little of both.
Mm-hmm.
I do like to write loose outlines to give
Mm-hmm.
myself a little bit of a direction,
Yeah.
but I don't like to pigeonhole myself into anything
Mm-hmm.
to where, well, I have to make this work because this is
Yes.
how the outline is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows for a little bit of movement if things don't go the way you plan.
Yeah.
Uh, because even the best outline I've ever written, by the end, when I have the end product, I'm like, that wasn't part of the outline.
Yeah.
Like whole sections or like so. Yeah, so I do plan a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm 100% a plotter. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like I don't write down every single beat of the story that's gonna happen because
Yeah.
like for me and the way my brain works, like I have to be able to get to that point where the
Mm-hmm.
characters just do stuff by themselves because
Yeah.
that's when like all my best creating happens.
Yeah.
And so like if I'm too structured, then like I get mad if like nothing's coming, and then
Yeah.
like I have to switch to another project or even do something different.
Yeah.
So I have to there has to be some measure of both. Like there has to be a relationship between the two. Uh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I think the thing that I do, I guess my process, the part of my process that's the thing that changes the most is the uh I guess the like the linear structure of how you write. Like
Mm-hmm.
you write the beginning first, then you write the middle, and then you
And
write
then
the
the end.
no. I've never written a story that way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, you dad never. Like
No.
I will there's a I have one story right now that I started from the back.
Oh.
I wrote the end first. And I did this because I was listening to NPR and they were interviewing, and I wish I could remember the author's name, but he
Mm-hmm.
said he's never written a book where he hasn't written the ending first. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, that's neat. I should try that. And so I
Uh-huh.
wrote a whole book that way.
Wow.
Wrote a whole like I wrote the ending. I wrote this is where we're going.
Uh-huh.
This is where we're going. And then I
Mm.
started.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never thought to write. Craig, you ever written anything like that?
No, no, I am always front to back, but my process tends to be I write a third of the book and then I go back and rewrite the whole thing, get to the second third of mark. go back,
Mhm.
rewrite the whole thing, and then finish. That's my process. But I could never do backwards. I don't think I could.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know our story is gonna have a happy ending, but I don't think I
Mhm.
could go backwards from it. I don't think I
Yeah.
could do it. It sounds difficult, AG.
it's
I
a
don't know.
it's a super fun exercise. Like I thought it
Yeah,
was like super challenging, and I was like, I could never do that. But I was like, I'm gonna try it, and I
yeah.
did it, and it made me like get out of my box and do
Hmm.
something different, and I think that helps me a lot. I don't like to constantly be doing the same thing over and over again with my
Hmm.
writing, or like
Yeah.
this way over and over again. And so it was a little different. And so that made it a little bit more fun for me. And so I was just like, oh. And then I was like,
That's
well, then
so
how did they
cool.
get to this point?
Yeah.
Oh, how they get to this point. And then,
Working backwards. That's really cool. That's really how many now do you keep talking about stuff that you're writing? How many books you have written? Like
my
you got a
God.
bunch of stuff all
So,
over the place or what?
yeah. So I have 4 books with my agent right now.
Wow.
I
Mm.
have 2 projects that I just, um, I briefly outlined one and I'm working on the other. The brief outline, I wanted to write something like fun and cozy. So I was like, I wanted to, because like cozy fantasy is like a thing right now. Like
Ooh.
it's having like its day. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have, if either of you have read Travis Baldree. He
I
wrote
have not.
Legends and
Yeah.
Lattes.
Oh, I've heard
I
of it.
haven't.
Yes.
I've heard of it though. I've been seeing it on a lot of people's things. It looks
It's
really
so
Yeah.
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
It's just there's zero stakes. It's so low stakes, and it's just cozy, and you can read it and just go, oh, that's good. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that would be fun to do something like that. So I wrote, I was like, I want to do a cozy fantasy in the vein of Stone Feather Fang, where it's a little like it's definitely Latina, and and then I was like, I also want to do one sci-fi because like it'd be
Hmm.
fun to do a cozy sci-fi.
Hmm.
So like there's those 2 projects, and then
Wow.
that's adding on to 9 other projects that I have that are in various stages.
Wow.
Like there, it I my brain is like with writing is so scatterbrained where like I'll have an idea and I can't work on it right away. I just have to write it down. And then when I get to a point where I'm ready to like tackle a new project, then I pull up those ideas and go, oh, let's do this one. And I'll start outlining it and then go, well, let's do this one instead. And so they each like they all start like trucking along at different
Yeah.
paces until I
Yeah.
get to the point where I'm like fully engrossed in it, and then I just write. That's the only thing I work on. So like I've I've been for years been desperately trying to do the sequel to Stone Feather Fang, and like
Hmm.
it's like one of those 11 projects is the sequel to Stone Feather Fang, and I'm like I look at it and I try to write it, and I'm like I can't get in this head. Like what's wrong with me? Like I want to do
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so yeah. So there's that fantasy. There's another fantasy that I had an idea on. There's
Wow.
a no 2 more fantasies. There's a kind of just a general fiction book that
Hmm.
I had an idea I wanted to do. I had an idea of doing. Do either of you know Brian Jakes? He wrote the Redwall
Oh, I
series.
know Redwall.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know
Yeah.
Redwall.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was another. I was like, dude, what if I did Brian Jakes but with like Latin American animals?
Cute.
Like that
That's
would be fun.
cute.
So like that
That'd
was
be
an idea
cute.
I had. So like
Yeah.
I had all this. This is like so. It's tiring.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So then I have to like finally once I have all this and I have to finally decide you have to work on this.
Yeah.
So which is why I've been working on this like cozy fantasy right now because it's
Yeah.
the it's the project that I'm most interested in right now. Like
Aw, cool.
because
Yeah.
it's fun. It's a like I've never written anything like overtly romantic before, and so like
Hmm.
this is like something new I'm trying. So I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
this is fun.
Yeah.
going through all the romance tropes, like
Yeah.
uh enemies to lovers. I already got I'm about to do some forced proximity on these guys. It's gonna be
There you
great.
go. We tend to, Craig and I tend to write against the tropes. Isn't that funny? So like
Yeah,
if you read, if you ever read You Can Call Me Cooper, I tried to be very anti-tropey in it. So like I have like the two guys are the same size, so I don't have like the big guy and the
yeah, the
little
big guy
guy,
in the
they're
song.
the same size. Like I don't know, it's funny. And that's why like I always have a tough time, sorry. I have a tough time with those graphics. Like when you're trying to write the tropes, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like I'm like, I
Oh,
don't have tropes. I don't know what their tropes are. Because
100%.
yeah, it's really hard. That's why I ask you guys to do it whenever I'm making you graphics. I'm like, hey, why don't you give me some stuff to put on here? Because it's hard. And we also see our books differently than the people who read them. Because like if somebody reads it and you're like, oh, this is enemies to lovers, and they're like, no, they're not. This is grumpy sunshine. And you're like, it is? Like, so it's interesting. But yeah, I love that. I love a cozy fantasy sounds really nice. Yeah,
Uh,
that's fun. Yeah.
I'm hoping it turns out how I want it. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to not my 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 brain wants to make everything a little bit more like dramatic than it should be. And so like I'm having to, and I think that's just being a storyteller.
Yeah.
So I'm having to like remind myself, hey, dial it back. Like
You have to like self-correct. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you don't need to make it so uh the stakes don't need to be that high. Like it's cozy. So just make like real low stakes. Real low
Yeah.
stakes.
Yeah. I write low angst, so I understand. I have the opposite. Like, so you want to write dramatic, and I want everyone to just stay nice and like cuddled up with a blanket. I don't want anyone crying. I don't want anyone getting upset. Everyone just stay happy when you read my books. That's where I am. And Craig likes to do
Yeah,
what?
you're either crying or you're horny, preferably both if it's an adult book.
I love it.
If it's a young
Yeah.
adult book, it's just the crying part. It's the horny
Yeah.
comes
Crying
in the adult
because
books.
you're horny.
Yeah.
There's that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to make people laugh and I like to make them feel happy. I love like the power of love, and I love like writing about like what can happen when you find like this special person, and I
Yeah,
don't know. And I just love making people laugh. Like I love writing funny
same,
stuff like a
same.
lot. Yeah.
The love thing is interesting because like I can't remember who I had a conversation with about this, but like you you can't like not be a fan of a love story. They're everywhere, even in like the most like duded up story. There's a love story. Like
Yeah.
there's a love story in there, and so it's that's one of those things when I'm writing. There's got to be some aspect of love in there. Like you gotta. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes everybody smile, and you feel
For
warm
me,
and cozy
it
on the
does. I'm a
inside.
fan of love. I need love in everything. So I don't know if I could write if there was not love in it somewhere. You think you could write that, Craig? A book without love?
I think I can because I'm loosely working on a thriller.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
I
think there's
forgot.
a love
Yeah.
story in that
Yeah,
one, but
no, I don't think there is in
most
that
other things.
one.
If there's not a love story, there's usually a sex scene at least. But
I mean, that counts.
yeah, it's a kind of love.
That's
It's an
kind of love. It's
expression
kind of
of
love. It's
it.
expression, exactly.
Kind of. I mean, I guess it depends. I guess it depends on who's doing it. I don't, wait, is there a sex scene in this book though? I can't remember.
In my
I know what you're talking about. I know which book you're talking about. You're talking about the thriller. I know what you're talking
Yeah, oh,
about. Is
there's
there
no sex
sex
scene.
in there?
No,
Oh,
no, not
okay.
yet, not
I
yet.
was like, wait, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't remember. So I only am that way because like I manage all of like Craig's project and all his time. So when he just said that, I was taken aback for a second
Oh,
because I was like, wait, what the hell are we talking about? And then
there
I'm like,
is
okay,
a
I
love
know which book
story.
you're talking about.
There is a
Yeah,
love story in it.
yeah.
Sorry, no, there
Okay.
is. There's no
Okay.
sex, but there's a love story.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah. May hit me a little crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell are we talking about right now? So yeah, and like Craigslist, if you think you have a lot of projects, which maybe you do, I don't really know, but I can tell you Craigslist is like this is so I'm holding up a piece of paper. Well, it's percent an 8 by 10. So I have like, what is that sheet, Craig, with all of your active projects on it for the writing projects? So we have like 3 sheets, I think. It's like,
Oh, yeah. hmm Yeah, I've
And then
got
I'm like, we gotta go through them like one at a time,
yeah,
one at
I've
a
got
time.
more
Yeah.
books than I'll ever write in my lifetime, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we just finished another one, so
Yeah,
I don't
finished
want to
my
hear that.
second book this year, and I'm
That's
gonna
right.
finish two more books this year. We'll see if I'm on the
Yes,
ball.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, it's cool like for us and I think that that's it's really cool if you have a writing buddy. Like if you have someone that like wants to hang out and keep pace with you and do like sprints like cuz we do writing sprints together and that helps the both of us stay focused.
Yeah, yeah,
Cuz then we just like we come in Zoom, we put ourselves on mute, we time and then we talk about our progress. But for some people that doesn't work cuz some people it makes them super anxious cuz they're like, "Oh, I don't want a
yeah.
timer. Don't time me." Like, but like for us, it works. And I think it's just, it is all about finding what works for you. And I like what you said, AG, that you have the projects and you come back to them like as you feel interested in them. And then you're not forcing anything that way. So
Right.
that's how you keep the creativity like going. And that's how the stories stay interesting because you're not forcing anything.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the issue with like certain projects that I have is like when I go to write them, I'm like like I'm trying too hard, and it's just
Yeah.
not. I'm
Yeah.
just I don't sit down and just write and have fun writing when I'm writing those things. So I'm like I can't.
Yeah.
Or
Not.
you're trying to force creativity.
Yeah, it's got to stay fun, that's for
Yeah.
sure. I think we only have a few more questions. I can't believe we've already had you here for an hour. I feel like you just got here for
I
goodness
know.
sakes. But I do want to ask you if you listen to music when you write.
uh Sometimes, not always. Like I find myself, especially lately, to be like completely silent. Like I can't like I turn off the TV, I put my phone on do not disturb, and I
Hmm.
sit in just like the relative silence of my house with like my
Hmm.
notebook just
That's right.
scribbling away. Um, with Stone Feather Fang, when I wrote Stone Feather Fang, I did listen to music when I wrote that. And I listened to, I tried to listen to like epic kind of Lord of the Ringsy style
Hmm.
music. But I read
Hmm.
there was this one, what was they were called Sir.
Hmm.
They're from like Georgia, I think. They're a, like an Irish folk band,
Hmm.
but they had this album called The Winter King or The Winter Kingdom. I can't remember exactly what it was called. Uh, and for some reason, I would always put that on when I wrote Stone Feather Fang, like, which is kind of funny because of the whole like I didn't want this story to be Eurocentric, but I'm listening to Irish music while I write it. It had the right feel for me. Like I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is
Yeah.
feels vaguely like epic, and so
Yeah.
yeah, I'll listen to this. But yeah, mostly I I listen to music more when I'm in the editing and
Hmm.
like proofreading phase.
Hmm.
Um, I have also done where I put a movie on in the background when I
Hmm.
write.
Hmm.
Um, Something that I've seen 1,000 times just as background noise.
Yeah.
I'll do that, and then whenever I go to do like my first like proofreading through it for the very first time, I'm like, this is literally a direct quote from the movie.
Oh God.
Like it
Like,
just
yeah.
sneaks its way
I
in.
gotta fix this.
Yeah, so I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to change all this. So,
Yeah.
I try
I
I try not to have I there was a I took a course in my master's degree program where the book that we were reading, the author cautioned against like rituals when you write, because it can psychologically make it to where your brain will only perform your writing if you're doing that ritual. So that's, um like I can only write with this pen, I can only
yeah.
write at this desk.
Yeah.
And I took that to the extreme. Like I read that and I was like, oh, yeah, I can't have any rituals.
Yeah. I'm gonna write in the kitchen today, and tomorrow I'll write in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then like I started taking a notebook with me everywhere because I was like,
Yeah.
if I feel like writing, I gotta write here. I can write here. I can write with
Yeah.
whatever, any pen. I can write
Yeah.
with any paper. I can write on. I've drafted stories on in notebooks, on my laptop, on my phone. Like I've,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
and I think part of why I can't listen to music is because of that. Is because I read that book like 5, 6 years ago, and for some reason that one line
It
stuck with
stuck with
me.
you. Yeah. And you're like, I can't always have music
Yeah.
on. Yeah,
So
that's
so
interesting.
so
Yeah.
thanks, whatever author, whatever book that was.
Yeah, I like to find I do listen. I've said it before. I listen to J-pop, K-pop, or C-pop when I write. So,
Yeah.
but I just like to listen to the way the music sounds to get me in the mood. The mood. I can't talk. I'm saying mute and mood, and I don't think I forget what I said earlier. I said some other word didn't even make sense. Um but I can't listen to stuff that I do understand, because then I will be listening to the lyrics of that song and I'll be thinking about that. So when I listen to the other
Yeah.
music, I'm just feeling the emotion and I feel like what's appropriate for the scene. And then, but I've also like listened, like I've looked up the lyrics afterwards, like after I've written, I'm like, oh, they weren't singing what I thought they were singing about. So, so
Nice.
that's like very funny to me personally.
That is funny. Oh,
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, this is a great scene. It's so happy. It's like this triumphant song. And then
yeah,
like afterwards I listened to it and it's like, oh no, he wasn't singing about that.
he was
So,
not thinking
but
about
it
it.
worked, it worked in the
I
moment.
did remember that. So I wrote a story called A Latina's Guide to Demon Hunting, and it's more of a like an urban modern fantasy. It takes place in
Hmm.
Chicago, and so
Hmm.
in the story, like I have the main character
Hmm.
listening to music at times
Uh-huh.
in the story, and
Hmm.
so when I was in those scenes, I would play that song on repeat. Uh,
Yeah.
like I have
Yeah.
like uh at one point in that story, she's fighting a demon uh called an El Sombreron, who is
Hmm.
I can't remember if it was Honduran or Bolivian
Hmm.
demon, who is basically like plays a guitar and like hypnotizes women, um,
Okay.
and like uh because he wants their hair. It's weird.
Oh,
He's a weird demon. But anyway, he plays a guitar, and so in my head I was like, oh man, he's got to play like some like really cool guitar stuff
yeah.
while he's trying to like hypnotize my
Yeah.
main character. And
Yeah.
so like but the whole story is dark, and so I was like, I need some like dark hypnotic weird
Yeah.
music, and so I was like, the Mars Volta, and so like I listened to like the Mars Volta on repeat anytime I wrote a
Oh
scene.
my gosh.
It was like 3 chapters where this demon, and I just had just the Mars Volta just
Just
on
the
repeat
music on.
and really loud in my apartment to where I think I was pissing off my neighbors. Like, but I had it like really loud, and I'm in my room just because like that's what he was playing, the Mars
But
Volta.
it worked for you. I think that's really cool. I love when we find something that does work. That's
Yeah, for
really
sure.
exciting. Yeah, Craig listens to special music when he writes special things.
Yeah,
So I built my CD collection back when had a really good friend that introduced me to like Christian rock and Christian pop. So
nice.
I imported all of that into my iTunes, and now I'm too cheap to like pay for Spotify or like buy albums and stuff. So, and also it's comfort music at this point. So I'm listening to like praise and worship music while writing erotica scenes. It's like a little,
That's fantastic. I
Yeah,
they
he's
love
like
both
at the cafe
involve
writing porn and he's like listening to praise
they both
music.
involve getting on your knees, usually at some point.
My God, see? Well, I think I can let that one go. I've edited that out of 5 to 10 podcast episodes. I'm gonna let it stand this time.
Okay.
Funny.
We're gonna let it stand because it's you. Because sometimes we have to be careful what we say with people, depending on who's on the podcast. I'm letting it stand. Oh wait, Rick, unless I can't let it stand.
that's
Is that
that's
okay?
so like that's so funny to me. Like
Okay, good. Then
that's
I'm leaving it in. Yeah,
hilarious.
it is hilarious. Craig is hilarious. You can't have my best friend, okay, AG? Sorry, you have to find your own. But yeah, no, I love the funny stuff that we come up with when we're writing. So I'm glad I don't know. It's one of my favorite things to tell people about Greg's writing.
Yeah, that's so funny. I
So I
think
don't
there was
know.
it was Mark Kelly, who's also
Mhm.
a parts art
He
author.
is, yeah.
I
Geist.
really,
Mhm.
yeah, guys, I
Yes.
read that earlier this year, and shout out to Mark if he listens to this. Uh, I he like in that story he like constantly talks about like like one of the guys in the story listens to like ska,
Hmm.
and it's so fun. Like I was reading that story, and every time he talks about it, and his characters like gets like physically ill at the idea of ska music, and I thought that was hilarious. And
Yeah.
I might have to like reach out to Mark and be like who listened to ska and hurt you?
Yeah,
Or,
Mark is a great writer too.
but now I kind of
Yeah.
hope, and now I kind of hope that he listened to ska while he was writing that. I'm gonna have to ask him
Yeah,
that.
you'll have to ask him and let us know because that would be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. I'm trying to think if there is anything else because I did we ask all the questions that we normally ask? I
I
don't
think we
know, but I
did.
want to ask
Okay.
you this. What's your favorite show? Do you have a
Oh
favorite show?
man, that's
I know.
hard.
I
What?
know. I
So
know. But
let
answer
me
it.
let me
So,
see. So I'll go with recently because like just well no okay my all-time favorite show is Futurama.
Mhm.
oh,
Like
yes.
like I can quote full episode. Like I'm dumb about Futurama.
Yeah.
Uh, I think recently what I've been watching recently, I started watching that anime Delicious in Dungeon
Oh, I haven't
on
seen that.
Netflix, and
Mm-mm.
it is so funny. Like
Oh, yeah.
I watched this anime, I'm like, what is that? What is going on? It's so funny.
What is it about? Because Craig and I are always, well, we watch new shows whenever Craig's husband goes away. Then I get Cali time so we can
Yeah.
watch new shows. What is this show about?
So there it's like dungeon crawlers.
Okay.
They're in this dungeon, but they need to eat, and so they eat the monsters.
Oh, okay.
And it's so funny because it's taboo. You don't eat the monster, but these guys eat the mon and it's so fun. And the main character is like horny for eating monsters. Like he just loves it. And that's what's funny about it is that like they're fighting to the death, this crazy monster, and he's like, how can we eat this thing once we like it's super funny.
What's the name of it? What's the name of it?
Delicious in Dungeon. I think the Japanese title is Dungeon Meshi. Uh,
Okay. We'll
it's on
have to
Netflix.
check it out. Yeah,
Uh,
we'll have to
Oh
see if
yeah.
we can.
There we go.
Yeah,
This one.
we'll have to see if we can check it out.
Great. Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Well, maybe when John goes away next, John's going away soon. Maybe we'll watch an episode of that. We'll have to see.
But yeah, Futurama is definitely my
Yeah.
favorite. I've
Yeah.
watched it since the beginning. It's one of those shows that I could just throw on,
Hmm.
do like chores and like be doing my chores and going up. I know what line's coming up, and then it
Leaving it
comes up
on.
and I
Yeah.
still laugh.
Yeah. We
So,
watched we just finished Star Trek, the old cartoon one.
oh, nice,
So old.
awesome.
So we just finished it, but it's funny because the writing in that show, like people don't understand. The writing in that show is really good. Like
It
even though
is.
it's really old, like if they redid those episodes, like they would be really, really good. Like so we have fun, but we just finished that. And then what did we start watching? I don't think we what did we watch?
And then we started season 4 of Star Trek
Oh
Lower
yeah.
Deck.
Yes, Star Trek
But
Lower
I'm
Decks.
also
Yeah.
working my way through a Futurama rewatch. I just finished The
Nice.
Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, and
Oh
next
yeah,
is Bender's Big Score.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you're at the original
The
series.
original ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have only
I'm
watched a few episodes that Craig had me watch. I haven't watched it all the way through, but it's really funny. I just haven't watched it all the way through, but I do like it. It's
yeah.
made me laugh a lot.
My
Except for the dog episode. That one made me cry.
it is heartbreaking.
It
Like
was so
I actually
sad.
just watched it
So
like a couple
sad.
days ago, and I
Yeah.
knew like like oh you got Jurassic Park. You see that
Yes, that's it.
you're just immediately gonna start crying. Like I knew it was coming, and I even told myself, "Don't watch it, Rick. Don't watch
Don't.
this
Yeah.
episode." And I did, and it gets to the end, and I was like, "God damn it!"
Yep. Every time, every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes. I watched that one and it made me sad too. So, but I don't like being sad. So I don't like watching sad things, much like I don't like writing sad things. Well, that's good. So see, we have a lot in common with AG.
We do. We
Yes, we
do.
do. I'm
Excellent
super
taste in TV.
excellent taste in TV, and he's a great writer. So I'm happy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we're super happy to have met you, and we're super grateful that you took the time to come and hang out with us. Is there anything else besides your socials? So we have a couple things that we do before we end the episode. But before we do that, is there anything else you would like to tell readers about your book that we didn't get to ask you?
Um, I don't really,
Don't think so?
I don't know how to answer
It's
that.
very simple. It's called Buy My Book, Please. You will love
Oh,
it.
okay. I do know how to answer that. So Stone Feather Fang is available wherever you get your books: Amazon, Barnes Noble, Apple
hmm
Books, Kobo,
hmm
Smashwords. It's great. You'll love it. It's a YA fantasy. You don't have to be a young adult to read it.
That's
Um,
right.
it's you'll enjoy it, and if not, that's cool too. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then where can people find you online? What are your socials? You want to share your socials?
So all of my socials are my handles are AGR Rights. Um, so Alpha Gamma Radio Rights.
Yeah. Are you everywhere? Are you on
So
TikTok too? I don't know
I'm
if
on,
you're on
I'm
TikTok.
not, well, I have a TikTok.
hmm
I have posted like 2 videos on it.
Yeah.
It's I can't do it. Like it takes too long to like
Yeah.
make a TikTok, and then like I
Yeah.
can't. It's too involved. Like I like to just go, ha ha ha, buy my book, post.
Yeah. Post. Yeah.
Like with TikTok, you gotta like edit it and like add music and then
Yeah.
make sure. Yeah, so I do have a
Yeah.
TikTok, and you're welcome to follow me there. I don't really check ever, but I am on Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. Um,
Nice.
I have a website that's www.agrrights.com, where you can uh, read some randomly posted blog posts.
Oh, exciting. Awesome.
uh,
Okay.
so,
Eh,
but yeah, those are all my socials. So that's where you can find me.
I'm being
mhm.
pointed at. Is it because we always make our guests leave us with the final thought of the day? That is it. All right. So, AG, what is your final thought of the day for listeners?
Does this have to be like a serious thought
It
or
could
It
be
doesn't
whatever
have to
you
be.
want. It could
Yeah,
also be just watch Futurama. If it could be anything you want, really.
man, putting me on the spot with a final thought?
that's what I do.
Yeah. Well, usually we forget and then Craig has to do it. So
Oh, I will. Since I'm sitting here and I see it right now, um, I am a purveyor of not a purveyor, but I like to collect not fine art. So, for example, I don't know, you guys can see this. Obviously, the podcast listeners can't, but behind me is a portrait of dogs playing poker. And I
Mhm.
think it's hilarious. And
Mhm.
I think it's the best piece of art I own. And I wish,
Mhm.
um, yeah. So I like to collect funny art. Uh,
Awesome. I love it.
so
So then we will leave the listeners with
yeah,
that.
I also just so you know, I've with dogs playing poker. Another fun final statement is I actually try to like put dogs playing poker in a lot of what I write because I think it's
Mhm.
funny. I
It
think
is funny.
it's super funny to me, and I can't explain why. It's just super funny. Like dogs gambling is funny. There's the statement. Dogs gambling is funny.
Okay, thank you. Well, that is what we will name your episode. Dogs gambling is
Dogs
funny.
gambling
I'm
is
writing it down. Dogs gambling is funny. So when you see the graphic for this episode and people say dogs gambling is funny, I want you to remember This is you. This is your
And they'll have
golden
to wait
nugget that
the
you've given
whole
to people.
episode to find out why.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us, really, and for hanging out with us. Really, we're thrilled to have you on Team D Parts, and we're really happy that Stone Feather Fang is rep by us, and we're happy with
Yeah,
all the success so far.
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you so much for having me. It was a hell of a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to
Uh,
be part of the family as well.
you're super welcome. All right, well, have a great night. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. And now it's time for coffee with Callie and Craig. That was super fun, Craig.
Yeah, I really enjoyed meeting AJ.
Yeah, I love the way that he ended the episode. It was so fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with dogs playing poker is fun, but I'm willing to let him have that point if he wants.
I don't know. I want to put like little outfits on the dogs and make them play. I think that would be kind of
Yeah,
funny.
this might be a side story, but something to end the podcast with, perhaps. So when I was growing up, we did have a small dog that we put costumes on, and
Mhm.
a few years ago, we found those costumes, and I put costumes on my cats. They did.
Aw.
They were patient. They let
Mhm.
me put costumes on them,
Mhm.
but they started attacking each other because they're like, I don't recognize you. You are
Oh
not a hot
yeah.
dog. You're supposed to be my brother. You're not a hot
Yeah.
dog.
Oh, but it's probably they were probably really cute before they, tried to murder
Yeah,
each
I
other. They
do
were
have a
probably really
picture
cute.
that
Yeah.
I can share with you, and maybe you can post it
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
with this post on
Yeah,
Instagram
for
if you want.
sure. Yeah.
It's of a wizard wearing a cow costume,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
is so pissed off. He's
Oh
so
my
pissed
gosh.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll add that to this post. So if you're listening to this, make sure you hop over to our Instagram so you can see the picture. And if it's not there, it's because I didn't attach it. So you
Or I
can feel free
forgot.
to you can DM me and then I'll post it then. But yeah, I had a great time with him and boy, he's got a lot of projects on the horizon. I wish
He
him well.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sounds like the only person I've heard of that has maybe just as many projects as we have going on.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, oh, how many? One, two, three, four. Yeah. I have
Yeah,
a
no.
lot, but not that many.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Well, the thing is, we don't have them active. Like we have them on
Yeah.
hold. So, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. My to write list is quite lengthy, but
Yes. Yeah. But you
not
know
that
what's
many in
funny is
progress.
that after recording the episode and us like then since we've been working on the Christmas story, we said we'd never write a novel backwards. But we
Hmm.
actually do know how our novel ends, and we
It's
are kind
true.
of filling it in now. So
Yep.
it's funny, right? It's one of those things like never say never and never say you can't do something because you can, I guess. I don't know. There are still some nevers. So actually, yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine to say never. There's a lot of nevers.
Like I will never eat olives. There is no chance. That is never happening.
No, yeah, I'm not going to eat olives either. I'll go with that. Yeah, I think I can go with that. I'm trying to think if there's another never. I don't know. I'm sure there are. But anyway, this was super
Mhm.
fun. Our next episode, I am not sure what our next episode is, to be honest. I know we have a lot of cool releases coming out
Mhm.
from the brands. So I'm not really sure what we're going to do next, but we'll see. It'll
Yeah.
be great, whatever it is. So
Mhm.
that's
And
it.
I realized we haven't done a cooking episode in a while, so we should make sure we do one of those soon.
Yeah, we should. I forget what we were gonna cook. I don't remember. We did just make enchiladas though. I need to post those pictures to our other, we're gonna post those to our other Instagram, our other accounts, because that was really fun. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. I guess we'll figure it out and
Yeah,
we'll let
sounds good.
everybody know. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. And
Final thought or where to find us? No,
we already have
AG.
a final thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dog playing poker is fun.
Mm-hmm.
So where you can find us, we are, oh God, I hope I got this right. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. The Blue Sky I always ask you about, and I think we're not on Blue Sky. So and TikTok. Uh, all of
We're so
those is
professional. I love our show.
yes, all of those is Cali Craig Talk. So it's CaliCraigTalk.
Awesome. Perfect. See, you did it.
I did it.
Congratulations. Yay. All right. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.
What? Can't say
Bye-bye.
that. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye for real.
Bye.
Bye.